I want to spend a few minutes today to talk with you about information security, what you need to know about it. It's been in the press quite a bit lately, so hopefully clarify some of the items that may not be clear, have some techniques that the bad actors use, and hopefully at the end of the day, arm you with information where you can help protect your information, which is the most valuable thing to the bad actors out there. I do have one disclaimer. Some of the opinions I'll be giving may not be those of Newtown Savings Bank. So with that, we'll cover the topics that we're going to have today. And a lot of them are more day-to-day items. I think the only deviation I have with the topics here is a portion around data encryption, which is a third bullet point. I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's out of scope for this particular presentation, but I want you to walk away with a general understanding of what data encryption is and the general good and bad associated with it. It works for you very well and could also work against you. So with that, let's dive in. So I want to start with some basic knowledge, some basic security knowledge. I'm going to go through each of these step by step. You know, the very first time, be careful about giving out personal information. So what exactly is personal information? The key data points I'm alluding to are things like date of birth, social security number, and things like bank account numbers. You might think your home address is personal information, but that's actually something that's readily available either on the internet or you go down to your town hall and you can get some information on that. The reason you want to focus on date of birth and social security numbers is using those two key data points. Someone can assume your identity. They can open up accounts. They can do things like file for unemployment. They can get a social security number card in their name and so on and so forth, change their name and so on and so forth. So be very careful about where you give those pieces of information. You do need it to do things like apply for a mortgage and so on, but at the same time, you don't want to be handing that out to folks who ask for it readily. The next two bullet points, be wary of emails and be wary of unknown phone numbers. Those two kind of go hand in hand, and these are the tough items because if you have a business, if you communicate with folks, those are usually the two general methods that we tend to reach out to people besides the in-person aspect. You know, the reason I said be wary of emails is obviously the bad actors reach out to you. They want you to do something via email, click on a link. Even people that you know by name, the spoofers can assume that name in email and send you email. So be very careful of that. Take a look at the email address where it's coming from. Make sure that you know that who that person is and so on. Phone numbers, if I don't recognize a phone number, I don't answer it. It's a little tough if you use it for something like a business. The key thing here is if the person on the other side of the phone is asking for some key data points about you, that's a big red flag. I would hang up right away. The other bullet points, the fourth one is interesting. Make sure people cannot hear you when providing personal information over the phone. I mean, that seems logical, but I think when folks get into a conversation on the phone, they tend to lose scope of where they are. One of my favorite stories is, when I used to commute on Metro North, person on the phone decided that they're going to buy something. They announced their credit card number, their CVID, and the expiration date of the credit card pretty loudly. So the whole car heard it, and I think they realized what they did after they hung up the phone. So please be careful and know your environment and be cognizant of what information you're divulging over the phone. The next bullet point, limit what information you share online and social media. It may seem logical and straightforward. Yeah, I don't really share a lot of information on social media, do I? No. But in Facebook, a lot of my Facebook friends have, their date of birth, their birth date, including the year in Facebook. They have the town that they were born in, their favorite foods, their high school, and so on and so forth. Those are challenge questions for banks, and so if you publish that via a media such as Facebook or on social media, the bad actors will just gather that data, especially if you make that information public. The last bullet point has to do with passwords. So think of passwords as what I call the key, your key. So use complex and different passwords. If you have one password for your email, one for Facebook, one for your bank account, and so on, keep them different. Keep them complex, lowercase, uppercase, numbers, special characters, and so on. Don't use the same password for all platforms, because once one is compromised, then that bad actor has access to all your access. And the reason that I say the passwords are the key, it's the equivalent of the keys to your house or the keys to your car. Would you give those to a stranger, or even if you give the keys to your car to a relative? What level of trust do you have with them that they're not going to go out and do bad things with it? So, just keep that in mind if you feel compelled to share your password with someone, what you're doing. The next set of items I want to cover are equipment safety. And the equipment I'm talking about are the devices that we use to communicate with, so electronically. So it's PC, laptops, tablets, and mobile phones. The very first bullet point, it seems straightforward, but I do have to call it out. Make sure that you have a good antivirus software on these devices. Norton is one that's fairly pervasive. There are other providers, other software, antivirus softwares that are out there. Just make sure that they're robust enough, depending on what you need from them, and make sure that they're set to auto update. Because what happens is these antivirus manufacturers or developers, their time to market with updating, if there is a new vulnerability or something new out there, it's much faster than you figuring out, oh, there's a new vulnerability, oh, Norton has it available, oh, let me update all my devices. The last thing I'm going to say about this is make sure that one of the advice I would give is just keep the same manufacturer across all devices. That way, they're consistent. You're not worried about who's doing what, it just makes life a lot simpler. The second bullet point's a little tricky. If something were to pop up on your desktop or on device saying that your device is infected, click here and it'll be removed. The human instinct says, yes, I want that inoculated as quickly as possible. But something like a Norton or any other antivirus software, I cannot recall where they would pop something up and saying, hey, do you want this bad virus removed from your device? Typically they automatically do it, then tell you after the fact that, hey, we did it, and if you want to take a look at what it is, we have it quarantined somewhere. If you do see a pop-up like that, you need to be disciplined enough not to click on it. If there's an X somewhere, maybe acknowledge that, but just figure a way not to click on it and get rid of it. Maybe reboot your device or something along those lines. The third bullet point, I think, is going to be fairly pervasive in the material that I'm going to provide to you, and that is, keep your operating system and software up to date, because one of the things that the bad actors do is they exploit vulnerabilities in software. Now, you may say, hey, my operating system hasn't changed. What do you mean it's vulnerable? Well, over time, the bad actors try to break the system, try to find holes in the system. And oftentimes they win, and the Microsofts of the world try to keep their programs up to date, and they try to release patches and so on. If you auto update, that's taken care of automatically. If you say, oh, I want to do the update, then obviously there's a gap that that provides a window for the bad actors to exploit that vulnerability. So please keep it automatically up to date. The last two bullet points have to do with, never download things that are free or you're not sure what their source is. It's very compelling when someone is selling you something or giving something away for free, software, anything along those lines. Just try to walk away or try to confirm that that offer is valid, but don't react based on that immediate instinct to, hey, I want that for free. I really like that thing, So I did promise that I was going to deviate a little bit and talk a little about data encryption because it's been in the press quite a bit lately. I don't know how many folks know what data encryption is or what encryption is. You can get really deep technically on it, but I want you to walk away with an understanding of generally what it is and how it can work for you positively and potentially how it could work against you. So data encryption is when, and it's very simple, simplest form is when data is put in a form that requires a secret key or password to be read. So what you're saying is I'm locking this data down. If I want Doug to read the data, he will get a key or I'll give him the password to read it. But if someone else wants to read it, they won't be able to see it. And that in the simplest form, that is data encryption. The good of it is that you have the power to encrypt your data. You can do it. There's software out there that'll do it on your behalf, that you can research and look into. The bad is if you don't encrypt it and the bad actors has access to it, they can encrypt it and you won't have access to it. So it's something that's a bit tricky, and it's something that the more you know about it, I think the better off you're going to be. Okay. I wanted to cover some common scams, and these things are always evolving. So the minute I took a copy of this, it's like, okay, move on to the next item. But these are worthy because they're foundational. These are methods that the bad actors use to craft their next technique. So the one at the top left corner, when Real IDs first came out, the bad actors would when this example said, oh, let me spoof the DMV, the Illinois DMV, for folks to validate their record. Well, first off, the DMV never validates via text. I don't think they move that quickly, to be honest. They tend to want you to come in to do the photos and so on. So that was a scam to basically have someone click on something and who knows what would happen. The one in the lower left corner, Milwaukee Tool Shop, this one was an interesting one because a lot of I like my tools, the work around the house and stuff like that, right? So when I saw the blog about that one was interesting. But the first thing that jumped out was look at how Milwaukee tools or how Milwaukee is spelled in the URL. So that's a first giveaway. The second one was they had things on it that were incredibly inexpensive, like something that would originally sell for like $650. They had it on sale for $40. One guy even had the the confidence to say, hey, yeah, I paid for that. This is in the blog. Hey, I paid for that, and I'm waiting for it to come. They keep giving me updates, and needless to say, he's probably still waiting for that tool right now. The one on the top right, I used a spoof of Amazon Prime Day. It happens, a handful of times a year. I think it's once, twice a year, where they have a big sale. The bad actors tend to be very seasonal, so they will They'll jump into action, leverage the Amazon web page, maybe a man in the middle of attack, capture information, maybe through email, send it to you, you click on something, the Amazon page pops up and you may think it's the Amazon page, you log in, they capture information and actually relay you to the real Amazon page. But the key thing is they have your credentials and your logon password in the background. They can log on and start ordering stuff using your configuration, your Amazon configuration. The reason I say they're seasonal is that is for Amazon Prime Day, coming up to the holiday season or a holiday season. They'll leverage whatever is happening then. Even natural disasters, if they know where you live, and they know you may have been impacted by a natural disaster, hurricane, and so on, they'll send out FEMA or things representing FEMA, spoofing FEMA, and have you try to click on emails or go to web pages and so on. These things are always evolving. So to say these are static and these are the things that we're going to keep an eye on would be incorrect. In the lower right corner, there's the FBI site where they have a list of common scams and crimes. And it's a pretty good list. It's an FBI. They keep it up to date. And if you're keen on, take a look at some of the stuff. There are some romancing scams that are in there, and some very interesting stuff. So I want to spend a couple minutes here to talk about social engineering. And social engineering isn't necessarily a mechanism. It's a technique that the bad actors use to have you do things, make you do something, or make you feel compelled to do something. We're all human, and they tend to prey on our vulnerabilities as humans, our imperfections. So some of the mechanisms that they use, I'm going to go through here. It's the three of them that I've listed here: phishing, vishing, and smishing. You may say it's a bit of a play on words, and it actually is. So the first one is fairly common. You hear about phishing campaigns that happens in the press. The end result are things where you hear ransomware and I hear there are campaigns that are happening, attacks that are happening, white attacks that are happening, folks representing Microsoft and so on. So it's basically when an attacker sends a fraudulent message to trick a human into revealing sensitive information to the attacker, or to deploy malicious software on the victim's infrastructure. I mentioned ransomware before. The fundamental thing is they have you do something that you may not normally do. The second one here is vishing, which is it's a play on words. It's voice phishing. So it's basically using phones as a mechanism to have you do something or disclose information that you wouldn't normally. Smishing is just SMS. It's texting, so it's a play on SMS and phishing. And I think I demoed it before, where the DMV, someone representing the DMV or trying to represent DMV, use smishing to try to get folks to click on that link. So be very careful. They tend to prey on human weaknesses and vulnerabilities to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Okay, I'm going to dive a little bit more into phishing because it's really pervasive. It happens more often than folks may realize. I think the where they succeed, where the bad actors succeed, especially with big corporations, those are the ones that tend to make it in the press, and you hear how often it's been in the press lately. So if you think of them succeeding on a very small percentage, you can imagine how many people are receiving phishing emails and so on. So basically, what is phishing? Scammers use email to trick you into giving them information or having you do something. right? Second bullet point, if they include a link or a file attachment, that could be the mechanism to launch something to basically compromise your infrastructure. And to say that there is one mechanism for phishing would be incorrect. They're constantly changing the mechanism. They're constantly changing the software. The bad actors tend to be located in countries. So it's an international thing. They tend to be located in countries that don't have extradition treaty with the United States. So you can imagine which countries those are. Next time are some common phishing scams. Fairly straightforward, one would think, but in the midst of reading an email or something like that, emotions take over. Something that said, "Oh, your bank account closed your bank closed your account." Whoa, what do you want me to do? Oh, just click on here and we'll validate some information. You're good to go. The second bullet point, promises of money of little or no effort. Hey, here are some free tickets to the coolest concert that's coming in town. Well, nothing's for free. We should know that. And even if you sense it's legitimate, and you want to explore that a little bit more, try to get some contact information from the email and not click on anything. Try to call the venue and see if there's some sort of advertising thing going on. But the key thing here is don't react purely on an email. Don't do what the email says that you should do. Do a little bit of homework, do a little bit of research. Bad grammar and spelling, I mentioned before that this is an international situation. So, English may not be their first language. You'll often find, horrible spelling and grammar. And some of them are quite interesting. But, again, if you don't read it carefully, you may focus in on certain things. The next bullet point tends to go with the second one, deals that sound too good to be true. The Amazon Prime Day situation could be one of them as well. That would fall into that bucket. And the second to last bullet point, I mentioned the situation with FEMA and so on. They tend to tug at folks' heartstrings when there's a disaster. The last bullet point, I think you may have heard of some of them, situations where a relative was imprisoned. You need to do something, or if you don't respond to this, your bank account is going to be closed or something along those lines. Like I said, they tend to tug at your heartstrings and exploit the human vulnerability, human emotion. So malware is a word that's used quite often. It's a combination of malevolent software. It's bad software essentially. And the bad actors are getting smarter about this. They're actually in a situation now. The first word, the first type of malware tends to be the one that's in the press quite a bit lately in ransomware. The definition of ransomware is there. You can imagine what it is. It's basically when a bad actor gets access to your data and makes it that you can't get access to it, and you need to pay them money for them to give you the key. So two things out of that. First thing is you hope the key works. The second thing is just before they encrypt your data, they may have taken a copy of it. So if you have like a client list or social security numbers or something along those lines, well, they have a copy of that now, and then they'll go ahead and encrypt your files. So that one is a pretty big one. You hear a lot of it in the press because they've impacted a lot of major companies. The bad actors are getting smarter about this. There's actually a situation now where they have ransomware as a service. So you can actually, if you want to do bad things, you can actually approach entities and they will code on your behalf and take care of the ransomware attack on your behalf. Um, there are other malware that's out there. Some of them are much older. You know, there's some of them I have listed here. Spyware. Those are ones that basically just track your activities and see where you go and collect information about you. It's usually not they usually don't do bad things as ransomware does, but the fact that your data, they're collecting data about you can be annoying. Keyloggers can be damaging. What keyloggers do is what keylogger software does is they install on your device, and they track your keystrokes. So if they detect that you're logging on to a to your bank account, they can detect what your user ID and password is and use that. You know, worms are malware that just spreads through your infrastructure. Could be a form of ransomware, could be a form of a lot of things, but they're rarely benevolent. And plus, you don't want worms in your infrastructure. You want to inoculate them. Typically, if you have a good antivirus software, they will address you know, things like spyware, keyloggers, and worms. Ransomware, because of the level of technical coding that goes into ransomware, it's tough for the antivirus manufacturers to stay in front of them. So what if you suspect you're under attack, or someone sent you a phished email or something along those lines? You know, the first thing that you do is ask yourself, does this person have a reason to reach out to me? Do I have an account with the company, or do I know the person who contacted me? If the answer is no, then it could be a phishing scam. I usually delete those emails. If they really want to get hold of me, they'll use another way to contact me. If the answer is yes, don't immediately react to the email. Take a look at the email. You know, does it have links? Are they asking you to click on something? Hey, check out this deal. Or better yet, hey, please do me a favor, give me a call on this number. Need your help with something. Call the company, or check the person's personal phone number that you have. That phone number that they provide you could be a way to start you know, compromising you. This slide covers what do you do if you are a victim of attack. So you did the whoopsie and clicked on that link, or you went to a site and you're not sure what happened, and so on. So, you know, the couple resources here. The one on the far left is a snippet from the FBI Gov site, and that's how to respond and report ransomware. And throughout their site, it's a really good setup. They give you guidelines on how to handle each of these each phishing situation. For this particular one, it's ransomware. It tends to be the high watermark. So you can contact their field office. I would highly suggest that you go to their website and take a look, get familiar with it. And the second bullet point is to file a report with their complaint center. Over to the right, if you think the scammers got your social security number or some piece of personal information, you could also go to identitytheft.gov site as well, and they'll give you advice on what to do. So you can do both in conjunction, FBI and identitytheft.com. The last bullet point I have there is it talks to if you, this is more on a personal level. So this is your device or your data. You may have some concern about what's going on there. So the key here is take steps to limit the damage. And it sounds simple. Yeah, what do I do? Well, the two things I would personally do is first disconnect from a network. Unplug that wire that where you're connected to a network. The second thing I would do is on another device, make sure that you have your backups somewhere that you can recover from. And I'll go into some more detail in a slide or two down the road. So in this slide, this is more how to protect yourself from the attack. So again, you use security software, the Nortons or something else. Make sure it's set to auto update. Second bullet point, we talked about the vulnerabilities before. Make sure that your applications and your operating systems are set to update automatically, because they could do the updates much more faster than you could ever do. The last two bullet points, you may have heard about multi-factor authentication. So typically, I'm going to use a bank as an example. The bank may have, if you log onto your account and you've never used that device before, the bank may say, "Oh, I don't recognize that particular device or that particular browser. Let me send you a code, or let me authenticate that it is you." So that's a second way of authenticating. The other item could be just two handshakes. Just make sure that you are who you are. They're using biometrics a lot nowadays, in addition to a password. And the last bullet point has to do with your data. So make sure that your data is backed up, and make sure those backups are protected. So there are many ways that you can do this. On a personal level, I picked up an external USB hard drive, not one of the small ones. It's like a 5 terabyte drive, and I have it hanging off my PC at home. And periodically, I'll back up data to it, and when it's not in use, I turn it off. So the network cannot see it. It's no one can see it. See it from the network. The only time that they can see it is when it's turned on. And I do that for a very short period just to back up my data. There are services out there that will provide this for you if you have a business and so on. The key thing that they do is back up the data, move it away, make sure they're protected. You confirm with them that it is protected. And the question you should ask yourself, how do I get that data back? So there should be that protocol with that service if you do have that in place. And there's some final things I want you to consider. A lot of things that I covered today are day-to-day activities. It's nothing. It's nothing that requires a heavy technical requirements or anything like that. And I want you to walk away with some basic things to consider. So the first thing is just be careful and slow down. I think I gave you a couple of data points that you could look for in things like email. But one of the things that the bad actors exploit is people are in a rush. They don't want to spend that extra time to look at the email address, to consider, hey, why is this person asking for this information? If I click on this link, what's going to happen? Those are things that I think over time, folks will become more cognizant about and do more often. The second bullet point seem logical: know who you're communicating with and try to verify. But in the world nowadays, the world that we live in nowadays, a lot of it is virtual. You could use Zoom for face-to-face or so on. Oftentimes it's a text, an email, or something along those lines. Kind of goes hand in hand with the first one. Slow down. Is that email from my relative or from my client? And so on. Just ask yourself some basic questions. The last one, very, very important. Again, passwords are the key to your kingdom. So make sure you use complex passwords and change them often, and don't use the same password for all platforms. And with that, I thank you very much.